Hi all, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to kind of show you something here today that I've been playing around with for the past few days, basically, since the kind of weekend. And I wanted to kind of show you something that, I kind of based off a learning here that I'll kind of show you the diagram here, first of all. Let's kind of just look at the diagram here. Let's just kind of look at this, for example. So this learning here basically involved, a a virtual environment from Python, and then using bright data for web scraping, using a Hugging Face embedding model for text chunking, writing that over to the DB, and then basically, using the vector DB. So it loads the vector DB using the Hugging Face embedding model again. And having a kind of query file here, Python query file here that allows you to kind of query the vector DB, or having a Streamlit application here. So that was the kind of infrastructure and architecture that I basically created here. But originally it would actually been based on somebody else's actually kind of learning here. So I'll kind of open that on YouTube here. So if you kind of like and share. But there's kind of reasons that I wanted to actually do it, and there's something I want to kind of show you here. So it kind of came, the original idea came from Thomas Jansen here. So if you can kind of subscribe and like his video, he does a really, really good explanation here of, using actual a local RAG. And basically I kind of adapted it here. And I adapted it for kind of a few different reasons that I wanted to kind of explain today. So I based it on him, on his project, but I kind of adapted it over time because first of all, what I wanted to actually kind of do was I wanted to actually use Raspberry Pi um, to actually host this application here. And the reason I wanted to actually do that is because I wanted to kind of test out how the models would actually work with Raspberry Pi. Um, and making sure that, they were actually performant, reliant, performance was actually kind of good. So what I kind of did was I kind of used, Raspberry Pi here. I did everything, I kind of changed these into actually kind of pipeline. So the first kind of pipeline I kind of did was, for using bright data for web scraping. And if you don't, know what bright data is, you can set up a kind of quick account and get kind of some web scraping going on. And then the kind of second thing I kind of did here was actually just creating a kind of, the ChromaDB with a Hugging Face model. So originally, Thomas Johnson had actually kind of done this with a different model using Olama, and I kind of changed it actually to use Hugging Face embodying model. And this is the actual kind of model name. This kind of V2 was the actual model name. And the reason I kind of did that was because on a Raspberry Pi, you're not going to get enough, a lot of resources, including kind of CPU. So if I was to kind of do this on a main system, using Olama, it would basically work. But because of Raspberry Pi, it's very, very short on resources, I had to use like a Hugging Face embedding model. Um, you know, Plus making sure that, the actual packages compatibility was actually all kind of working on the Pi. So I'm kind of going to go through that kind of quickly, but this is the actual kind of end product here that I kind of created this different kind of Streamlit application here that was come from the kind of original. But you know, um, if I kind of run this, you can sort of see that it's going over to my RAG um, ChromaDB. It's pulling back, the the search results here. It's come back quite fast. Now, this is never going to be really fast because this is just like a kind of small POC for my Raspberry Pi, but it's never going to be overly fast. But if I kind of go into the files, you can sort of see here, I kind of broke these up about, testing the chunking, testing the embedding, testing the retriever. So, kind of breaking those kind of first statements up and making sure that everything was actually working here. and then I kind of had the actual kind of files here. So I had to do a lot of these, changes to the original files here to kind of make these work. So the first one was, using scraping Wikipedia using Bright Data. I had to do a lot of kind of changes to that actual kind of file. Then I had to kind of change this chunking, embedding, ingestion, and then I actually created a new file here called retrieve and query. And this retrieve and query file just kind of allowed me to, actually create a file that would actually just return my queries on the command line. So that kind of, really kind of helped me. And then, I kind of created this chatbot here, version here. So at the end, I'd kind of played around a little bit, making sure that, I was trying to get this, and it's never going to be as, responsive as a full server, but I tried to get this as kind of responsive as I actually could, because what actually happened in the end was, you know, I could sort of see that, I kind of created like a few different kind of versions here to kind of play around with. So I created a version called Node Generation, and the latest version I actually kind of created here was no vector DB regeneration. But long story short, it was, I kind of created the chatbot first of all, and then I kind of played around with the performance, making sure that, I was trying to get it as kind of optimized as I could, because again, the Raspberry Pi is very, very small in resources, but you can sort of see that the actual kind of response time is it's not kind of too bad. It's not too bad, it's kind of acceptable to a certain amount. One thing I also kind of did was, um, if I kind of go here, I can kind of update that file here. So if I kind of come down to my streamlet here, and I kind of sort of say, let's just kind of stop that version here. And again, this is my Raspberry Pi here, so I'm completely on my Raspberry Pi. And I wanted to kind of do it on the Raspberry Pi because I didn't want to kind of run too much on my own kind of Mac here. But you can sort of see, I mean, it takes a few minutes to kind of load up, and it would do, but the basic functionality is working. And what was really kind of important to me was, while that's kind of loading up, what was really kind of important to me was that I was actually kind of working through these kind of files here. And I was, working through the actual kind of requirements file here. And I was working through all of these, and I was actually kind of checking and learning, more about the actual packages of what's actually required for running, you know, AI on my Raspberry Pi. So, items like here, these kind of packages here, like Chroma, Hugging Face, I kind of spent a good few hours actually kind of trying to get all of these kind of in sync. So the way I kind of worked this was, I started with, one, two, three, and then I kind of went to kind of number four here. Um, and you know, the kind of idea was that, I'd learn about, the kind of Chroma running on Raspberry Pi, and the Hugging Face running on Raspberry Pi, because a lot of these kind of items are kind of different. But if I kind of go back to my kind of notes here, I could actually kind of go, and I could kind of run number three here for retrieve and query here, you know and I think I kind of showed this in the last kind of the last bonus video here, but I could kind of open up a double session here, and I could actually kind of just say, let's say, let's just kind of go to a and let's kind of go to number 8 here, and I could kind of do a kind of retrieve and query here. So I've yes, let me see, did I just kind of update that file? Retrieve and query. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I thought I'd actually gone into my virtual environment, my virtual environment here, but I obviously haven't. So I need to kind of just go and make sure that I'm actually kind of running in my virtual environment here. So let's see, can I get my virtual environment. So source, let's search for source in my files. Okay, so I can sort of see of my source, and I didn't actually log into my kind of virtual environment here. So of course, if I kind of rerun that again, and this time it'll actually work. And again, this is the kind of point of learning, right? So, everything that you kind of nearly kind of break, you actually kind of have to fix. So it's good kind of learning from that point of view as well. But you can sort of see that the um the UI has kind of loaded up here, and I actually have a kind of rebuild vector DB. So I have a way to actually kind of reload the actual Chroma collection here, using that. So I kind of put a Streamlit button here, which will kind of rebuild my vector DB. So that was kind of a nice kind of added bonus as well. Um, and you can sort of see here that I can also kind of query it from the actual kind of command line. And again, it's not going to be overly fast because I'm running this all kind of on a Raspberry Pi here. Um, and this one actually, I don't think I actually kind of optimized this file, this retrieve and query. So every time, it's kind of running, it's actually kind of, loading up the vector DB. I mean, there would be other ways to kind of do this, but, using kind of session state or various kind of different ways. But you can sort of see, it actually kind of does load up. Just takes a kind of few minutes, but what is langchain? So I can kind of query it here um, from the UI here. So this is where you've got your Streamlit application here running, and then you've got your query running here. But every single file here that I kind of created as well, using his files as kind of basis. Every file here I kind of went through and I made sure that I had to change them an awful lot. I'm going to be honest. I had to change them actually an awful lot um for running on a Raspberry Pi, because a lot of it did not run on the Raspberry Pi. So you were actually kind of quicker to kind of change and update. And I kind of made sure that the environment file was correct. But apart from that, a lot of it, probably 70% of the actual original project actually kind of had to change to run on Raspberry Pi. Um, but in saying that, there was a lot of kind of pain points. First of all, I actually created a new kind of Raspberry here. I installed it, set that up ready for installation of the Python environment and those packages. None of this just worked straight away on the Raspberry Pi, because it just constantly kind of complained about something about, it can't run a llama because, there's certain resources that are not available. It just complained about something, but it was a very, very good exercise to kind of go through. Um, and I learned an awful lot about, doing this. Would I do this again on Raspberry Pi? I probably wouldn't use a vector DB if I was kind of, to be honest. Um, but I'm going to kind of check in those files, and I've checked them into kind of um my own kind of GitHub repository. Um, and just use it as a kind of good experience here, um because it definitely works. It definitely works. You know it's not overly kind of slow, but I mean it can be kind of a little bit kind of slow. So um you know a Raspberry Pi is not probably the area that you want to be kind of creating a Chroma kind of DB on, but you can sort of see it runs, it works, it loads up what I need to kind of do. Um, so again, I'll kind of check those files into GitHub. I'll make sure that the kind of notes are updated. I've kind of gone through the actual kind of notes here. I'm going to kind of bring over those kind of notes for a second, because this is the way I kind of do for all my kind of learnings here. So I kind of create like, a version of my kind of notes here. So I kind of start, and, you can sort of see if I was doing this on Raspberry Pi, and, um, I'm setting up, Vim here, and kind of, going through and setting up a llama here. But then in the end, I didn't actually kind of use a llama. But it was good to kind of check and good kind of set up to make sure that kind of everything was working. These were the original text embedding files that had been kind of used, but the Raspberry Pi just was having none of it. So um, I then kind of went through and just started to kind of, these were the kind of packages that, kind of gave me more issues than kind of anything. So if you kind of look through the requirements file, you'll sort of see, that the requirements file was quite lengthy. It was quite a substantial file, but these were the kind of packages that kind of, um, especially when I kind of got to these ones, because the llama in the end I didn't actually kind of use, but when I kind of got to langchain and langchain community and chroma, and the Hugging Face, a lot of the files, I had to kind of resolve a lot of those kind of issues. But you could sort of see that, when I started kind of getting these files correct here, like the testing, the chunking, these items here started to work. And once I got kind of get one or two of the files working, it kind of meant that, the kind of UI was kind of much more easier to kind of create and get set up. So as you can sort of see, I went through all of the files, I got them all working. And I made sure that, all of the dependency packages, issues, warnings, anything kind of like that were all kind of resolved at that time. So um, great experience, really appreciative to Thomas Johnson, who, created the original project, and I just kind of had to go through the battleground and actually kind of make it work onto my Raspberry Pi. But I think in the end, it's a good result because it kind of gives people a different kind of option on maybe kind of using it on a different kind of platform rather than your own kind of Mac and having your Llama created on your Mac. So good exercise and one I kind of really enjoyed. Thank you.